And welcome to Let Him Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo, and we got a great show in store with you, for you. Joining us again, he's back. You've seen it before, right? You know you were back. You remember, right?
Yes,
it's been a while
I remember.
Back. It's been a few years, right?
It's been a few years.
Hicks. Sandra Hicks is with us, and thank you, Sandra, for coming. Good
Paul,
to see you.
thank you very much for having me back on your show.
Great. Yeah. And you're going to be talking about your candidacy for Congress.
That's right. I'm an independent progressive candidate for United States Congress. I'm a peace activist. I'm a fearless, courageous truth teller, writer, investigator of government corruption, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Right. But you had some, I hate to start with the negative, but, they say is, do you start with the good or the bad? Let's start with the bad. Okay. What happened to your signatures? You couldn't get into the Democratic primary.
Yeah, so I was running in the Democratic primary, got knocked off by a younger, richer, more bland Democrat who had a lot of money and lawyers, and they challenged us. So we thought we had 2,000 valid signatures, but there's this process where you have to have at least 1,250 valid, and the courts gave us some hard scrutiny, and they said you only have about 1,140. So we came about 110 short. And but it's okay, because me being a Democrat, a lot of people were like, I don't know. A lot of my friends were like, I just don't feel it with the Democratic Party, with the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DNC, who killed Seth Rich, stealing the primaries from Bernie, the Hillary Clinton thing, the oligarchical Wall Street tendencies.
So did you vote for Donald Trump?
Of course. No.
No, of course not. Right.
No.
Well, how is it? I like to get to this because many times I've had people who are folks on the show who, they attacked Trump, politically correct, and it was righteous. But then I had to ask them, did you vote for Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've had the opposite, and I had to say, do you really believe in what you say, or did you vote for Donald Trump because you thought he would fix things by and I know people who did that, right?
Yeah.
So,
of course, I voted for Bernie Sanders. I'm a progressive, and then I voted for Jill Stein in the general. But I think what's really harrowing for the entire country, and that's something we can all agree on, is that 75% of the people that voted for Hillary or Donald Trump voted because they hated the other candidate so much. Yeah. So they were voting against the other candidate. They weren't really standing for the person that they really wanted to be president.
Yeah, that's what's behind this all.
And I think we can all agree there's something really wrong with that. Whether or not you were a Trump voter or a Hillary voter or a Bernie guy or Jill Stein person or one of the other candidates too, the libertarian guy whose name I can never remember, but whatever.
Right. And so none of them really, except for maybe Bernie, but none of them really, it was like a meal that didn't fulfill.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think, I don't think anybody voted for Hillary Clinton thinking that she was some sort of JFK, idealistic, Camelot, Paul Wellstone progressive. She's not. She coerced Obama into attacking Libya when he did not want to attack Libya. She was a hawk. She voted for the Iraq War, kind of like Representative Carolyn Maloney. She's the incumbent I'm running against here in the 12th Congressional District, which is, a big chunk of Manhattan, east side of Manhattan, from 97th all the way down to Houston and Delancey in some parts. And, this person has been in office for 26 years, and she's completely gone off the rails. She's not really a progressive, especially when it comes to foreign policy.
Carolyn Maloney, right?
Representative Carolyn Maloney, yeah.
Right. Well, so what is her? Where do you disagree with her decisions, her recent decisions?
Well, she flip-flopped on the Iran nuclear deal, which I think gave Trump the atmosphere or the environment in which to scuttle the Iran nuclear deal.
By flip-flop?
She flip-flopped. She was against it, and then she was for it, and then it became a moot issue because Trump trashed it. So, but the Iran nuclear deal was a great foreign policy accomplishment of John Kerry as Secretary of State and President Obama. They, opened up the door to heal a long-standing broken relationship. Like that guy Stephen Kinzer writes in his book All the Shah's Men about the truth about the Iran-U.S. relationship. It's not like, these crazy terrorists took over the embassy and they captured all of our CIA spies, and how dare you do that in 1979, right? Well, the real story is that we overthrew their democracy in 53, right? And that's the story that needs to be told in alternative and mainstream media.
Okay, so you're taking you want to tell the truth in an era of false news.
Yeah.
Do you feel that might be dangerous?
Sure, it's dangerous, but you know what? You don't
really
heroes
look at have Paul Wellstone.
Paul Wellstone. Yeah.
Right? So.
Paul Wellstone is a great model for me. He ran a real insurgent campaign. He made real awesome, funny television ads that were just like, my opponents have a lot of money, but I don't have a lot of money, so I'm going to say what I need to say really quickly. And he had these really funny ads. He would run around
and what happened to him wasn't so funny.
No, he died right after being the only Senate Democrat up for re-election that year that voted against the Iraq War. And according to a book that I published with Jim Fetzer and Four Arrows, we think that Cheney actually told him that there will be bad repercussions.
Right.
They found sources who said that Cheney warned Senator Wellstone that there would be repercussions. And so there was a mysterious plane crash, and he died with his sons.
Very tragic.
Yeah, it was very tragic. The Mother Jones called him the only 60s radical elected to the U.S. Senate. So, as somebody who was kind of from the 60s, 70s, radical.
70s, more of the 70s, 80s.
70s, 80s.
Yeah, but I remember the 60s, that's for sure.
Right.
And and they were great times, right? And represent, the 60s. Do you see yourself as sort of inheritor of that kind of?
Yeah.
Are you like a 60s?
I actually even like the mid-60s. I like the JFK, RFK 60s, Did you know that there's actually a really great RFK memorial bust?
Robert F. Kennedy,
right in front of Brooklyn Supreme Court. So as I was getting battered by the Board of Elections process of getting thrown off the Democratic Party ballot, one sort of counterbalance to that was these great quotations that are etched in stone of RFK saying, talking about the voice of the people and hearing the voice of the people in songs and in poetry and on farms and stuff. It's a really great quote. It's on the side of one of the. So if you're next time you're around Brooklyn Supreme Court, I hope that you'll have a moment and go look at this statue. It's really kind of a quirky statue too. Instead of it being kind of like this, politician statue, it's kind of like showing him like this, like with buck-toothed a little bit and a little bit, lively. It's a lively form.
So do you see yourself as a sort of populist?
Yeah, absolutely.
But different than a Trump populist.
Yeah. But Trump tapped into something. Trump, I don't like any of his politics, but the fact that he beat the establishment candidate who was a shoo-in, the corporate media really did think that there was no possible way that the wisdom of the populace would choose this buffoon. And he is a buffoon, but the fact that he won shows that there's a rejection of establishment politics. So that's why I think it bodes well in this race. I'm not the only one, too. There's another challenger against Maloney, and I'm going to be the one that's going to be running all the way up into November.
What is it about the Clintons that annoyed so many people?
I think it's the element of squareness and straightness that we were talking about before. The element of just everything seems so contrived. Like she was on that African American radio show, and they were asked, "What do you always have in your purse with you at all times?" And she said, "Hot sauce." And they said, it feels like you're just saying that to win us over. Yeah. And she said, "Is it working?" It's kind of like, oh, gross. Like, don't admit that. It's even grosser when you admit it. So there's an element of inauthenticity that people just instantly sense. It's like intuitive. It's like,
now, is it authentic to do what I saw Trump do in one clip that I had to comment on in the middle of the campaign, where basically he opened up his belt and stuck his hand down his pants and threatened to his cheering, screaming crowd to whip it out right then and there. I saw that happen. I couldn't believe it.
Did he? Yeah.
And he really did that.
He made references to his size.
He stuck his hand down his own pants.
He made reference to that. I knew that he made reference to that a couple of times. I don't know about the incident that you...
He danced around on the stage actually doing that, and I guess that was a regular thing he did.
Yeah. I think neither extreme that we're talking about here is what the American people actually really need. I think if you're a buffoon...
A madman.
If you're a madman or a buffoon or a fool or an entertainer, you know how to whip up a crowd into a frenzy. That's not the kind of quality I think we need in a leader. Some people say oh, you're a politician now, you're running for office. And I say, no, I don't identify as a politician. I identify as a leader, a lifelong leader, catalyst, entrepreneur.
What would be the first thing you would do in office to show yourself as a leader and not just an organizer, just not somebody who runs things, but who
I would
leads.
make speeches and articulate a vision and start a nationwide organization that would start to talk about nationwide identity around nonviolence and peace. And maybe, stepping into the lineage of Martin Luther King and Henry David Thoreau and say, you know what? We're wasting $7.5 billion a year on aggression and weapons. People can go online now and see the movie The Day After. This is a formative movie, a nuclear war movie from 1983 with Jason Robards and a great cast. And I just recently watched this because it's so formative. The idea of nuclear war, the idea of our country being whipped up into a frenzy of war. And we haven't had a nuclear war in our lifetimes, but I've seen the Gulf War and the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War and the invasion of Libya and all these little dirty wars happen. And it seems like we keep on blundering into these wars and these situations that are just quagmires, and that there's 22 veteran suicides a day. We've got to somehow figure out how to get the country off of the addiction to violence and war. Speaking of 22, there's 22 school shootings this year alone. How this is happening in the USA and not in Germany or Australia or the UK.
And I can't even imagine the ones that happened last year. Remember last year?
Yeah.
50 people or more at
Las Vegas.
I was thinking of we've forgotten, right? It wasn't that long ago. It was 50 people in Orlando, Florida.
Right.
And then another one after that, and it was another one after that.
Right.
And that was late, and the year before, it was another one.
Yeah. So there's got to be a way that with all the power and the creativity that we do have as a country, there's an amazing amount of creativity and power in the people. You see this when you actually really talk to people, and you see how much latent creativity there is. It's kind of like, that's where the real power is. And there's a lot of people, they live lives of quiet desperation. Nobody comes and actually helps them open up their creativity. That's the kind of person I want to be as a leader. I want to be that kind of person who helps people have a breakthrough.
So what do you think? What would be the first legislation that you would propose?
I would talk about deep cuts to the Defense Department, and I would talk about exposing false flag attacks. I would talk about...
What's a false flag attack?
A false flag attack is when you have an attack on a military target or a country, and somebody else is blamed. And this is a normal military tactic. It's talked about all the time. There's been many false flag attacks in our history. The Gulf of Tonkin comes to mind.
War movies where the Americans put on German uniforms, like in Inglourious Bastards.
Hitler did it actually in the invasion of Poland.
They put soldiers in the uniform of the people and then attack their own people and claim this was an attack.
Exactly. It's a great tactic militarily because you whip up public opinion the other way.
Would that include claiming that a country has nuclear weapons when it really doesn't?
Yeah, absolutely, actually.
In order to have an attack.
Right. There's a frenzy now about Iran, too. And in Iran, I just met some people on the street who said, they're crazy over there. They want to bomb us. But you know what? Iran actually has no nuclear weapons. I was just there. I was just speaking about...
There's no way. I mean, they don't have an offensive army at all.
Oh, they've never invaded another country.
They don't have the ability at this point in their existence to do that.
Well, they are. Now, hold on a second. Iran is funny because, to be truthful, they are expanding their influence militarily in Syria, in Lebanon, and Yemen. They are backing the Houthi rebels in Yemen. So Iran is not completely this nonviolent Gandhian utopia.
No,
they're not.
But at the same time, I don't really see them launching a tank attack. What you're talking about is that they are they have some soldiers that are at a base camp somewhere that might do some atrocities against some force they're fighting against. But they aren't going to come in and take over Yemen.
I wouldn't say atrocities, but that's true. They are in a regional Cold War in which Israel and Saudi Arabia and the U.S. are doing their damnedest to overthrow Assad, and so Iran is helping Assad stay in power. And Iran is fighting ISIS while we're backing ISIS against Assad. Right. So we've been fighting ISIS in Iraq, but backing ISIS in Syria.
But so what you're expressing here is you're opposing the foreign policy of your own country, and you want to run for office. Do you think that might work against your ability to win?
Absolutely not. New York City is full of progressives and liberals and radicals and independent thinkers. And now I'm running as an independent, so I'm not in this closed Democratic primary in which I can only appeal to Democrats because you have to be a Democrat to vote in the Democratic primary,
you can win?
Unlike other states. Absolutely. I'm well known. I've been on 60 Minutes and Washington Post style section, front cover. I'm well known as the independent publisher who took on the Bush family.
How long has has Carolyn Maloney been in there?
26 years, but for the same amount of time, I've been doing independent media confrontations, INN World Report Television with yours truly, meaning you.
Right. And you were on this program before.
And I was on this program before, and it got great YouTube traffic. But seriously, I'm well known as like the guy that started the Vox Pop Coffee House in Central Brooklyn, and got great internet traffic and great
Why
traction.
do you think would turn people against somebody who's been in for 26 years to vote for a newcomer, a relative newcomer? As
I'll tell you, she's got great name recognition until you say, "Oh, did you know she voted for the Iraq War?" So we have people saying like, "No, I'm not interested in taking your flyer." And then you say, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, I like Carolyn Maloney." And I say, "Did you know she voted for the Iraq War?" And then people are like, "Well, let me see your flyer." They say like, what's on their flyer? And then we talk about.
So they don't know. They don't.
They're not even interested. Until you say, "Did you know she voted for all the bailouts? Do you know she thinks that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East?" This is what she said, and it's kind of like Israel's not even really technically a democracy if you're a Palestinian. If you're living in the West Bank, it's occupied, Actually, Maloney is so conservative on Israel, she wants to make it a crime to support BDS. Now,
what's BDS?
Green Party embraced BDS, which is boycott, divest, sanction. So this is a movement, Jewish Voices for Peace, which I'm actually a member of. Has supported this movement because the Likudniks and the hard right in Israel is so powerful, and they've stripped the Palestinians of their human rights, of their rights as they're a people without a country. It's like an apartheid state over there in Israel. So somebody's doing something. Somebody's really standing up with BDS. But there's a pro-Israel lobby in this country. It's very powerful, and they have people like Carolyn Maloney in their pocket. And so Carolyn Maloney not only supported, but was a co-sponsor of H.R. 1697, which would make it a crime to support BDS. So even the ACLU is with me on this. They're like, you can't legislate politics into, against free speech. We have to have free speech in this country.
And they're doing this in other countries, which makes me wonder if there's a orchestrated counter.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, anti-Semitism is real. I'm not anti-Israel by bringing these things up. I don't want people to misconstrue my policies, and I certainly don't want the hard right to capitalize on this position and say, "Oh, he's anti-Israel," because I'm
How
actually.
Can we have apocalyptic Armageddon without the existence of Israel, without an extreme Zionist leadership?
I know it's true. The Christian Zionists are actually a big part of this. The people that believe that take the Bible literally, and they think that Jesus has to be seated on the throne in Jerusalem before the apocalypse can begin.
Pence comes from that whole background. Right?
Well, now you're scaring me that you know this.
Oh yeah.
It is alarming. But let's go back to something you're talking about: false flag attacks.
Yes.
I think the city is ready to know the news that lawyers have stood up now and have joined the movement to ask for a new investigation. We had a major press conference on the steps of City Hall when the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry finally, after working on this for 2 years, Paul, they filed this petition in U.S. Southern District Court with 57 categories of evidence saying, you know what, 2 planes bringing down 3 towers on 9/11 just doesn't make any sense. The towers fell at free fall rate of acceleration. The steel columns were numerous that were holding those buildings up. The rate of the way those buildings came down is a dead giveaway.
Right. So that's now we're getting into this last 8 minutes of the show. So this is perfect.
Good.
Right. So what you're saying is that 9/11 was what they call an inside job.
You could say that. That could be a postulate. That could be a theorem for creating reasonable doubt against Bush and Cheney. Reasonable doubt calls for an investigation, calls for adjudication, calls for a grand jury. And so now U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman is obliged by law to convene a grand jury because any citizen can call for a special grand jury or a grand jury.
Really?
The crimes are big enough. And let me just give you some context here. This is not coming out of the blue. This is after 16 years of a movement that I've been a part of, calling for peace, calling for justice, calling for due process of law. Right. Breaking with this, blue ribbon panel, oligarchical, award-winning, 10 DC insiders supposedly investigating the 9/11 event. Back on INN World Report Television, remember I had Richard Benveniste on, and I was the interviewer, and he was the squirming Jack Nicholson-esque witness, and he was talking out of the side of his mouth. A friend of Hillary Clinton's, by the way.
Who is Benavides?
He was on the 9/11 Commission, and he was also a CIA drug runner lawyer for Barry Seal. Did you know this?
No, I didn't know that.
He was, Barry Seal's attorney. Okay. Daniel Hopsiker nailed this.
Mena, Arkansas.
Mena, Arkansas.
Yeah,
so
I broke that story.
Very creepy guy. For the establishment to have him be a part of the 9/11 Commission and one of the 5 Democrats.
Right. Part of that whole Oliver North neocon operation in Mena, Arkansas.
Yeah, the narcotics trafficking.
Associated with narcotics trafficking, and then in the Octopus, the story that came out, the book, and that they were supplying drugs to the inner city ghettos.
Yeah, I got a pop quiz question for you. See if you can answer this one.
Sure.
Who covered up for Ed Meese when John Kerry wanted to investigate the narcotics components of Iran-Contra? Who covered it up for Ed Meese?
I don't know.
Here's a clue. He's in the Trump White House today.
John Bolton?
John Bolton! You did it! You nailed it with just one little clue.
I thought so.
Yeah. Bolton is deep state, brother. He's deep, and this is why we need progressives who are men and women of bold ideas and courage and action. We need to send those kinds of people to Congress.
And you're saying you're one of those
people. I could be. Yeah, I think so.
Well, I'm glad. I've had folks on, I have to say I've had Green Party candidates on who, when I asked them if they thought they could win, said no.
Oh, I absolutely think I could totally win. This, the world is calling for an upset. The world loves an underdog. The world loves a David versus Goliath story. She is the richest, most conservative Democrat in Congress today. And she's been there for way too long, has done way too little for the people. Yeah. Her own literature, her own campaign, is she's taking credit for building the 2nd Avenue subway, which is a great convenience, but that's it. That's all you're going to really campaign on. It's like there's so much more. It's like there's all of the bailouts that you did. Turning the Federal Reserve into a Wall Street ATM machine. That's not democracy. That's not bailing out Main Street. We could be doing so much more with capital and with funding social ventures for finding entrepreneurs that are going to do something in the public interest and giving them the capital and the know-how and the marketing and the networking really to turn business and ventures into something for the social good, because there's a huge power there. But we don't really think of social capitalism. We think of either capitalism is either in a black hat or a white hat. But what if it was nuanced, and what if it was developed in a certain way? There's so much we could do for infrastructure in this, and use capital for infrastructure in this country too. So many projects that
Who would be the best president to work for if you were in Congress? Who would you?
Tulsi Gabbard. You know who that is?
No, I've heard the name, but I don't know.
Representative Tulsi Gabbard is a hero of mine. She is from the great state of Hawaii. She went to Syria on a mission of peace, and as an independent maverick investigator and member of Congress, she had an opportunity to meet with President of Assad, and she took it. And then she was roundly criticized by the right wing in Congress, and she said, "You know what? I'm a member of Congress. I get to meet with whoever I want to meet with, and I don't need your approval."
If you were elected, who would you meet with first? Would you do that?
Tulsi Gabbard. Actually, I met her.
As far as
I met her
an
in New
international figure, where would your first place be? Would it be North Korea?
Well, I've been to Iran twice as a peace activist and speaker. I was just in Iran a couple weeks ago. I would like to meet with President Rouhani. I met with the guy who challenged Rouhani, Ayatollah.
You were just in Iran?
I was just in Iran. Did I tell you this?
No.
How much time do we have?
We have
3 minutes.
4 minutes.
Okay.
Tell us.
Oh, good. All right. So I was just in the holy city of Mashhad, Iran, which is in northeast Iran. It's close to Afghanistan. Some great people were there from across the globe, including Americans, including former Bush White House Defense Department people.
Who did you go with?
Michael Maloof. Kevin Barrett is a liaison that helped me meet people there. Yeah. Scott Bennett, former U.S. Army PsyOps expert, who's now a whistleblower. Amazing guy, amazing story. You should have him on your show.
Sure.
Yeah. Alison Weir, the critic of Israel, was there, of course. And but it was a conference about Palestine. It was a conference that was celebrating and trying to bring scrutiny to the issue of human rights in Palestine at a time in which that's on
What did the conference come to? Any conclusions?
It's not really that kind of conference. We Americans think effectiveness, and we think results, and they're more like gathering and seeing what happens. And they have it's great though, because they have a lot of media, and I even broke out a guitar and played some songs for some people at an event for veterans from the Iran-Iraq War.
Oh, who were there? So there were a number of Americans there.
Yeah, no, the Iranian veterans from the Iran-Iraq War.
Oh, okay.
The USA doesn't really have any veterans from the Iran-Iraq War.
Well, right, but I'm thinking of American veterans.
We used Saddam Hussein to fight for us.
We've been fighting all these countries. I mean, I assume that were they there? Were anybody there? Was there any veterans there? American veterans there?
No. It was all people that were mostly martyrs' families, holding up pictures. It was very emotive.
Right. Martyrs from the Iran-Iraq War.
Yeah. So HicksForCongress.com has a full report under the heading of Mashhad.
That's how folks can find out more about this.
Oh, let me slip that again. HicksForCongress.com, and you can volunteer, you can donate, you can ask me questions about policy, you can make recommendations about strategy. I'm open to feedback about how to win this thing, how to defeat a conservative Democrat whose time has come to lose, and whose time has come to be replaced by somebody.
How do you do this? How do you? What's your strategy for the next several months?
We're going to print a newspaper. I'm going to continually broadcast on my radio show on American Freedom Radio Network.
When is that?
That's Wednesdays 3 to 5 p.m. on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. It's called Deeper States of America, and that also there's a link to that on HicksForCongress.com.
So you have a radio show.
I have a radio show now.
Yeah.
Going directly to the people, like Eva Perón. And we're planning. I got great volunteers. One of them's here today. What's up, Zen?
Zen's here.
Yeah,
Zen's old friend.
And we've got. We're going to print a newspaper and print a whole ton of those. And my carpentry business is still doing.
You're a carpenter.
Chugging along. Yeah. So we might have the carpentry business advertised in the paper to keep the paper going. And but yeah, the website's great. Social media is great. We post often on social media. Facebook Live has been great for us.
And what is your Facebook page?
SanderHicksForCongress.com. Sander Hicks for Congress on Facebook and HicksForCongress.com on the webs.
For folks to get more information. Right. Last 30 seconds, how would you like to sum up your candidacy? What would you do as far as 9/11, for example?
What would I do? Well, we need a new investigation for the health of the city and for the health of the country. And we need to kind of realize that in the big picture, all of this is important as a way to get us into a time of everlasting peace, as a time to get away from the manipulation of public opinion, the manipulation through propaganda, because the corporate media and the government all too often work hand in hand when there's a big enemy to be denounced and a big war.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Take care.
Okay.
Good luck.